Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond Earth Issues. This is part two. Now, a couple of the things have been modified in terms of the list of where things are, and it's not because I suddenly decided the next day that, you know, these things are of different importance, but it's more because I realized that a lot of these things are just tied into each other, and that, it it makes it difficult to kind of leave them in like number eight and refer to them later. So some of the things fit within each other, and you'll kind of see as we go along why I moved some of them around. All right. So today's plan, we're going to work on discussing the issues with the boring mid and late game, which many people complain about. I included. Just click next turn because you got nothing else to do. I mean, that's one of the issues. Then we have the health system, which is also somewhat tied into the boring mid and late game. This was formerly number 8. Then we have a great lack of immersion and ambition, and I I remember seeing one of the comments on the forums discussing Samar's deep affinity preference for Wi-Fi headsets, and I thought that was really funny. The fact that that's the way we see it, and that's what it feels like. That's what it looks like. So yeah, this is very representative of that. The headphones or Wi-Fi headset, as we would call them, not exactly immersive enough. And then we have the boring leaders, which was also I felt like it was part of the lack of immersion. You have interesting leaders. It's going to help immerse you to some higher degree. So these are just a couple of the things that we have on today's plan. Yeah, this is what we're going to talk about. And one last thing I'd like to draw your attention to is we're not going to talk about Rising Tide. Even though I've been following the forums, I haven't been following everything. I don't have a great opinion about diplomacy yet, and I don't have a great opinion about War Score and its implementation. I do have opinions about some of the things about Rising Tide, but those two I do not, and I want to keep those things for later because we're discussing Beyond Earth. We're not discussing Rising Tide yet, and until things get implemented, perhaps it would be better not to. I'm excited to get to this part, but it's something that we'll have to work on, and maybe after I play the game, because I do have it pre-ordered. I want to check it out. I want to see how it's going to be. I managed to get it on Green Man Gaming for $20. So the way I see it, it's $20 to hopefully fix this game. But either way, we'll see what happens. All right. So first we need to look at the biggest issue, a boring mid and late game. Okay. So again, I'm going to be comparing to Civ 5, not because it's better, not because I think Civ B should be a mod, not because I'm living in dreamland where B has to do what Civ 5 does. No, I'm just comparing it because guess what? They're on the same engine, and one of them has done something right. One of them got a 51%, one of them got like a 90 something percent on Steam. So that's why I'm comparing these. All right, so first in Civ 5 we have exploration. So you go around, you see a variety of things. You have natural wonders, you have ruins. You've got a lot to look around for. You can find barbarian camps, you can find city states, you can find lots of stuff. So exploration is something that can carry you through quite a bit of the game and remain somewhat interesting. Then we have golden ages, which these are tied to the happiness. So the great thing about golden ages, as I want you to kind of notice, is that they you start the counter early on, and you're like, okay, well I'm getting this started. It's something you kind of pay attention to, and you're like, okay, well when am I going to hit the scan? Am I going to hit it here? Am I going to hit it in the Renaissance? Am I going to hit it in the Industrial? Like when is it going to happen again? And the great thing about this is that unless you're expanding like a monster, you're going to be hitting at least a couple of these. Unless you're really exploring. I mean, unless you're really expanding a whole lot and just not managing your happiness to be more than 0, you're going to be hitting a couple of these. And if you're in a small focused empire, you'll be hitting 3, 4 of these. So these help kind of give you a bonus. They help speed you up, and they help keep the game exciting. You're like, all right, sweet. I'm getting more culture. I'm getting more gold. this is great. Like it feels like my civilization is supercharged, and you can really feel the benefits. And that kind of changes up the game, because Civ is a long game. I usually play on standard. You could have like 8 hours here. You could have like 10. I don't know how long you could have, but you could have quite a few hours here between the early and late game. And having this to look forward to is one thing that repeatedly makes the game interesting. Next, we have culture. So yeah, so you start accumulating your culture, and then you look forward towards these culture trees, and you start creating your culture, and you start making your civilization into its very own. And you always people always ask each other, did you go on or did you go tradition? It really defines your nation, and it it kind of helps you stand out. Like your friend says, "Oh, I'm going Liberty." Like, all right, well, I want to go tradition. I want to be different. I want an empire of four cities, and I want them to be extremely powerful. Well, go tradition, and you let your buddy go Liberty. Somebody else wants to go piety, they can go piety. There's whatever you want to do. So this helps you keep you interested, with those little bits of, bonuses that you're getting, and your completion bonuses throughout each tree. It's very interesting, and it keeps you interested, and it does this even when you switch over to the later, medieval and Renaissance culture trees, and you're able to kind of further personalize who your nation is, and that keeps you, very interested, in my opinion. Okay, barbarians. Barbarians. What I love about these is that they come up and they give you a challenge. They're like, hey, guess what? This part of your territory isn't being protected. I guess I'll just pillage it all, and you'll pay for it. And I like that. I like that you players don't have to punish each other on every single greedy move everybody else makes. Barbarians are here and they keep you in check. And as of lately, actually, I've been playing with Raging Barbarians just because it really keeps people honest. It keeps people paying attention. It keeps you on your toes. And to me, that has been keeping it interesting. Now, obviously, I have about 600 hours in Civ 5. Okay, so I've had a long time to get used to barbarians, but they've never been a threat to a city of mine when they weren't on Raging Barbarians. Now it's getting to that point where you're like, if I build a city later on and I don't defend it, like these guys could easily take this city out. So as they get teched up into higher techs. So you want to respect the barbarians. You want to be careful, and you want to keep a couple units here and there, and you want to be challenged. You want to be pushed a little bit. You don't want to just sit there and have nothing happen. I mean, I know sometimes that's fun to sit in your own corner and have nothing happen, but eventually, usually, it does get a bit boring, in my opinion. So these guys, they keep it interesting. They can't be dealt with. It'd be fun to be able to deal with them in some way, shape, or form, perhaps. But either way, they keep you in check. All right, faith. So faith is another thing. This is something that the great thing about faith is you don't have to do it. You can completely ignore it. And how I've been playing lately is I've been completely ignoring it because I used to play it on every game, and I just realized that it slows you down a lot. Like if you're in terms of income and such. So the great thing about faith is you can go for it and you can reap benefits in mid game. You can reap a lot of benefits out of that, extra gold, extra things like that. But it takes a while to kick off. So it's another way of splitting civs into two: the civs who want to be faithful and the civs who really just don't care. And I'm glad that you're able to choose either and perform well. And hit kind of different power spikes in terms of your civilization. Like you'll be a little heavier at the beginning with faith because you have to invest in those shrines, you have to invest in those temples. But come the mid game, you're going to get some great bonuses, and you may even get some okay bonuses in the late game, to be honest. So, and it's a different way to play. It's a more cultural way to play. I mean, it can be used for war, but usually it's not as much as it could be. But yes, there's a lot of little things you can get out of it, and it's fun. It's kind of enhancing everything else. Our city states. Now, I loved the city states in Civ 5. I wish they would have done even more with them, but that's just me. um, I love the fact that you can declare war on them. You can do lots of stuff. You can pledge to protect them. You can, even though that one's not that impactful, but you have a lot of options. You have interaction with them. You see, so they're not just there. They're not just things that you just kind of kill, go squish, and say see you later. There's actual consideration. Like if you finish somebody's, maybe it's more beneficial to you to finish a quest, get them to like you, and then give them that extra 250, and they're your allies, and there you go. You never know. Like they could have two luxury resources for all you know. They could provide you something you don't have yet, and some of these are very beneficial, and they're all different, and they give you considerations. They give you constant considerations. Which city state do I want to be friends with? This one or this one? Why? You know, is this city state allied with somebody else who may go to war with me? I should remember that. I should keep units near this border. They keep you to some degree paying attention, and I wish they had done even more with it. I love them, but I wish they had done even more. All right. So then you have faith turning into religion. So you have your pantheon at the beginning here, and then here you have religion. So again, the game redefines itself. It says, hey, the rules have changed. You now have a religion. You now need to consider which one you want to take, and you want to maybe tailor your play to whatever that is. So if you're grabbing a religion that's great at making money, you want it spread. Well, what do you need to do? You need to increase that faith income, and you need to spread it, right? So your gameplay changes. You could choose a faith that doesn't need that many followers. You could choose one, the +1 happiness per city on a river or something like that. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. So you can really tailor your gameplay to, faith can really help. Getting a religion can really help with that, and then you can enhance it. And if you're piety, you can get a Reformation belief. And if you're, on top of that, the Byzantines, you can get a Byzantinian belief. Like you can get a lot of stuff, and they really change how you play the game. And I think that's really one of the best parts of Civ 5 is that it can constantly kind of lets you kind of reiterate your Civ. Now, obviously, if you're not playing faithfully, you're not gonna be doing this whole reiteration. Tourism now. Tourism starts to kick in somewhere around here. You start getting the great riders, and they start popping up, and then you have the choice to expend them, or you have the choice to put them, you know to sacrifice them or put them in the building, have them create a great work. So this is another thing that you can do. You could sometimes I've had games where I just create a great writers guild just to cash in the culture because you get a lot out of it. You get quite a bit, and I've done that sometimes. Sometimes I use them to try to get tourism. So this is another way to play the game, and this is another thing you can get started on if that's the way you want to play. Then you get spies. So you start out with whatever one spy in the Renaissance, I believe it is, and then you get like one more in the industrial, one more modern, something like that. And those they're great because they can go to cities like enemy cities. They can go, I mean, enemy capitals. They can be a diplomat or they can be a spy. They can go to a city state. They can improve their relation, and then they can even do a coup there. And if you want to, if that's really critical city state you need to get by next turn, you can attempt the coup. Why? Because maybe there's a World Congress vote later. So there's a lot of stuff you can do. Research agreements. Now these, I don't really like the idea that you have to have research agreements. But once you learn to play with them, they are right. It's just you need to spend a lot of money into them. Now, again, this forces you to interact with the other leaders. This is not my favorite way to interact with them. I kind of wish research agreements weren't a thing. I kind of wish there was something else we would have going between civs. But it does force you to interact with people, and if it wasn't there, the Civ 5 would be to a certain degree less interesting. So this is something that you need to consider and you need to keep doing. And yes, and there's also trade, which I completely forgot to put on this list for some reason, but there's also trade that comes in, and it increases as the game goes along. And this adds more interest, like, okay, where's this new trade route, where am I going to put it? Like, I think that's very interesting, and it introduces it to you slowly. One trade route, okay, later you get two, okay, later you get three. Like, it goes slowly, it's progressive, it's not overwhelming. Then you get archaeologists. Now, obviously, you don't have to go for archaeologists if you don't want to. This is another option of what you can do. But guess what? This links to tourism. So, if you're playing the tourism game, you probably want to get them. Well, you pretty much have to get them on higher difficulties. But yes, they help, suddenly the map is interesting again. Suddenly the map has something to offer. There are various locations which we were unaware of earlier that now offer new things, and that's very interesting. So the archaeologists, they fulfill this role of making, looking at the map interesting again, and I think that that's really great. All right, then we get the World Congress. So the World Congress, it changes everything. You start noticing, okay, well, suddenly I realized that hating on all these people who don't want to declare war on me, now they can be more petty about it. Now we're being more civilized. We're saying, guess what? I'm not going to attack you and kill a whole bunch of people. I'm going to just ban you out. I'm going to ban out your resources, and then you're slowly going to choke. And I'll sit there on the other side of the map laughing at you. That's what the World Congress is all about. It's about petty, in my opinion, it's about petty arguments between nations, and it's funny because I feel like it reflects, the reality at the time, and at times it can be for the benefit of that nation itself instead of being aggressive with it. But it's never without a reason. It's always with the goal of advancing one's own agenda, and that causes you to kind of consider, okay, well, if I'm friendly with this other nation, them and I can vote for one thing together, and then we can beat this other nation, and we can both get an advantage out of it, or I can get an advantage out of it. So it starts to make you consider, okay, diplomacy is important. If I actually consider these nations and I consider what I'm doing, I need to actually make a decision about how I'm going to interact with other nations and how I'm going to utilize my knowledge of who they are and how much they like me and how many votes they have to my advantage. And that's just another way to manipulate your way to the top, and it's very fun. It changes the game on a fundamental level. There's more you can do. It's not just you sitting building up your own stuff and just warring on whoever you want. It forces you to go out of your way, because guess what? If you don't, you're going to start getting banned out. Very likely. All right. Next, we start having a complete revolution in warfare. I mean, you get planes, you get like fighters, you get bombers, you get anti-air, you get helicopters. You get a whole lot of things, and you know this completely changes the map. It completely changes how things go. Now I know a lot of people say like you can bomb or spam and this and that. Well, that's kind of, I think, I don't know too much about like high level multiplayer Civ 5 strats. I don't play competitive Civ 5, so I don't really know too much about them. But I know one thing is that at least if it's a balance issue, that this is something that could have been patched and this is something that could have worked. And at least this adds a new layer, a new thing you need to think about now. Of course, I hate when I'm behind in tech and guess what? This guy gets bombers. But when you think back about it, why did I fall behind? Why did this happen? Well, because maybe I just played poorly, and I let them get ahead. So it's a new way to push your advantage if you're ahead. You don't have to rely on sieges. You can literally just bombs away, and you also get ballistics then, and then you can bomb from even farther away. But yeah, there's this kind of revolutionizes the game again. Then you get ideologies, and this is where things get really interesting. Things get heated, and as you can see, this although like things get more and more complex, everything starts to get added in, and you get to the late game, you get to here, and suddenly they're like, guess what? You thought you had the pressure on you with the World Congress. You thought you had the pressure on you with these planes that were trying to that could bomb you at any time. You thought you knew what was going on. Well, guess what you have to consider now? The fact that these other people hate your guts because you're of a different ideology. That right there, again, redefines the game. It puts the pressure on you as it gets to the late game. And that's what you want. And it makes you real friends and real enemies. And some of the earlier things that have happened are greatly reduced. People like, okay, well, I'm trading with you, and I'm trading, like I have a trade route with you, and I'm trading resources in terms of like gold for silver or whatever. But I realized that since you're a different ideology, I hate your guts. So it changes the game again. this late in the game changes on you, and this is if you haven't won by then, of course. So no matter what happens, if you get to this point, it gets interesting again because once again you have to consider more things. And then in the late game, you get all the victory conditions. You get the cultural victory condition, which is a bit of an accumulation of tourism and trade route, like proper trade route management to other countries, open borders agreements. Like you get the cultural victory option, you get the space victory. You get all your spaceship parts and you get out. You have your domination victory, which could be achieved anywhere along the spectrum of the game. You even get you can have lots of victories, and I can't like remember them offhand right now for some reason. Oh yeah, your diplomatic victory, which is my favorite. So you deal with everyone, you deal with the city states, and you get everybody to vote for you. You have a lot of options on the kind of victory you want to achieve. And I think that that's one last way of saying, hey, you've played this game the way you wanted to play it. You won the way that you wanted to win, and that's great. So there's a lot of things you can do, and I think that's it's a really fun time. Now, I also wish they had a religious victory, but that's just my opinion. I thought that would have been kind of an interesting thing to add in, and people could always disable it if they didn't want to, but I thought that was something that would have been really interesting. All right. And on top of that, you also get nukes near the end. So that, again, changes things up. It's like you could have a city that's doing completely fine and suddenly be nuked. The game is getting unstable, the world is unstable. It kind of reflects the time of when the nuclear bomb came out. You didn't know if that city was going to be here today, be gone tomorrow. So, people started building shelters and such. So you can see how the game truly changes itself from the start of exploration to faith, to improved faith, to spies, research agreements, all this other stuff. The game says, guess what, the rules have changed. Hey, guess what, the rules have changed again. And repeatedly it tells you this, and repeatedly the game gets more complex and gives you more options, more things to think about. And as you get comfortable with one thing, the next thing comes online. You get comfortable with one thing, the next thing comes online. So it's a great kind of design in my opinion, and you can see this in a lot of games. You can see this in MOBAs. As you level up, you get more abilities, you get shorter cooldowns. The game speeds up and it gets more complex, and it gets more like on a knife's edge. Smaller mistakes can cost you more, and that's the inherent kind of a way that these kind of games can go. So you know yeah, there's more to consider as you build up your expertise throughout the game. As you figure things out, there's more to figure out, and that constant reiteration kind of keeps it interesting. All right, now let's look at BE and look at it from this perspective. Exploration. All right, so you can go around, you can find resource pods, which is energy or a little bit of science. I believe that's pretty much about it. You can find the crash satellites, which cost you an expedition and will give you like a solar constructor usually. It may give you other stuff that I forget right now, but you can get solar collector. You can also get the ancient runes or the progenitor runes. Sorry, progenitor runes, and those are kind of interesting. They're, in my opinion, they're a bit strong. They should perhaps require you to put a little bit more investment in them. They're kind of like getting a technology out of a rune in Civ 5, except it's even stronger than that. So it's almost as if you had gotten like 2 or 3 techs, because you get an entire age ahead of your opponent in terms of units. If you think about it in Civ 5 terms, you get an entire unit. So I'm not a huge fan of just how strong the progenitor runes are, but they are interesting. I agree they are interesting, but they could use a little work. So you got exploration now. You got a couple things you can find, but you can't find any natural wonders in Civ Beyond Earth. I'm aware they're putting them in Rising Tide, but yeah, it's just kind of a goodie hunt, and of course that's better than nothing. But there's nothing awe-inspiring. There's nothing amazing that you really find. You just find things here and there, and that's about it. And another issue I think with the game is they don't have luxuries, so you have nothing that you really want. I mean, unless you're aware of where the geothermals are, and those are not even as much as I'd say a luxury is worth in Civ 5. So there's nothing on the map that you're like, oh my god, I have to have that. You just see it and you're like, oh, it's floatstone. Unless you're unless you feel like you're going to be playing a game where you absolutely have to have floatstone, you're going purity, you need to build all these floatstone buildings, which, I honestly don't feel that way personally. I play on Soyuz, not Apollo, but I play on Soyuz, and I don't really feel like you have to have those affinity resources um, to do well. But I feel like there's nothing on the map where I feel like this is going to be a contested spot. This is going to spark a war, and this is going to spark something interesting. It's a lot of just like, oh, here's this. Oh, sweet, I got this bonus. Oh, cool, I got that bonus, and that's it. Like to me, that's not interesting. Like the only thing that's maybe worth fighting over is a progenitor rune, and that's you can't really fight over that because that will be that'll be explored and that'll be gone. I mean, I guess you could attack your explorer with their explorer, and that's really about it. I mean, there's nothing lasting there, at least in Beyond Earth, the base game. Okay. Virtues. Now, virtues are weird. I was very excited about how you could invest anywhere in the virtue tree, and it would be kind of interesting. But unfortunately, the way they've done it, um, it's not that impactful later on. I mean, early on, it's important. Like industry tree is pretty strong, prosperity is pretty strong, and then like the 1 point in 7 health and prosperity, or like the +1 health per city. Those kinds of perks are pretty nice, but apart from those things, the rest of it's not too interesting. I think you have like 1 or 2 points in the war tree or might tree that are nice. That give you like an affinity bonus or whatever. But apart from those, like there isn't any too much of anything that's that interesting in there, and it kind of falls off late game. It just kind of feels like you're just dumping a whole bunch of points in something that doesn't change your empire that much. So and it definitely doesn't define who you are because everybody can go everywhere. So it's more of just a, a little bit of a lackluster kind of lackluster virtue tree. It doesn't. It's not very interesting, and I don't really mind the virtue tree taking the back seat in this game because you want affinities to be the main thing. But if you're not gonna have the virtue tree define you, and affinities aren't really defining who you are apart from your units and a couple buildings, I think that it's a bit of a failure. So either you make the virtue tree more define you more, or put something new in the affinity related that will help kind of define who you are. Maybe you can create something where the affinity tree or the affinity points that you get level up your affinity, and you can make a couple interesting decisions about who you are as a harmonious player, or who you are as a purity player. You could do something like that. And I know this game, things can get very complicated, especially with later on, the hybrid affinities coming in and rising tide and such. But something has to be done to help define who you are, and right now it's just not there. Okay, satellites. So you also get those solar collectors sometimes from ruins, and those come in technically at the beginning because you can usually get one off a crashed satellite. So those are there, but all they end up doing is saying all you end up really doing as your decision is, hey, oh, I got one. I'll put it right smack down on my city and not think about it once more, and that's it. At least for the early game. So it's not much of an impactful decision, and it's not very interesting. Aliens. Now, these were, to be honest, the most disappointing thing I have seen. Basically, the issue that I had with the aliens is that they were just kind of there, and they're less aggressive than barbarians. They start out passive. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, you just landed on their planet. If you want to keep the early game interesting and challenging, have the aliens be stronger and have them be at least mildly aggressive at the beginning. You'd have to be on your toes. Now, of course, this would make some starts like the worker start a very dangerous one. But guess what? If you're sending out a worker without a soldier, that's gonna have to be part of it. And if you're paying attention to your worker, chances are you can probably move him away before an alien gets to him. So I feel like they should start on a harder difficulty. I mean, on a more aggressive stance, because I personally think they're ridiculously boring. And the only thing that ever bothers me about aliens is, I mean, the only thing that ever challenges me is when a worm is coming through my territory, and that's not even an option to deal with until later. So it's just like, okay, I can't do anything about this, and I just need to sit back there and take it. So it's not there's no choice there. There's no interesting point, and I'm okay with the aliens being strong to some degree, and I'm okay with them, um, being able to take on some of them later, and I'm okay with that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that there's no choice with a lot of these, and the only time that you may need to make a choice is if there's like an alien nest right next to you or something like that. Apart from that, the aliens don't challenge you ever, and they leave you alone quite easily. So I think that's a bit of an issue, and it needs to be addressed. All right, spy agency. So this is one thing I'm really disappointed in. It's first of all, it's too strong. You have to get it early on. There's no choice. You see, the problem is with these kinds of things is if you have to get it early on, then you're killing the choice. You're killing the player's choice because you're saying, hey, you can go for that. Your empire will suck, but you can go for that. You can choose not to go for that, and that's just not fair. I mean, the point of a choice is that they're at least relatively similar in strength. Your options, so you can kind of say like you can kind of justify it. Just like some people will say in Civ 5, oh, I want to go tradition, and you're not going to be like, oh no, that's garbage. You can't really do that, and I'd even argue that even piety to some degree is somewhat viable. I wouldn't go for it on like a really high difficulty. I'd say it's a little bit weak, but I'd say it's viable in some degrees. And if you do it ridiculously well, you can get a lot of money out of it. Is it as strong as the others? Probably not. But there's still some space there where you can say, well, I'm not completely gimping myself by going, into this tree. So um, with a spy agency, everybody goes for it early because guess what? You get three spies immediately, and they just can steal everything, and they can get you a whole bunch of money, they can get you a whole bunch of or energy, they can get you a whole bunch of science. And honestly, what I do is if I need money, I steal energy. The rest of the time, I'm just stealing science, steal science, steal science, steal science. Thanks for all the freaking extra science boost. Like I'm just flying through like text with that. So it's not interesting. The options aren't balanced, and it's too powerful at the beginning. This needs to be introduced slowly. This needs to be an option that, although it is good, it is not the only option. Okay, this option is way too strong, and it's you know causing you not to have any options. Here comes the affinities. So these are implemented in kind of a weird way, and they are tied to the tech tree, which is it's good and bad in some ways, and I'm not going to get too much into that because that's a different discussion, I believe. But in terms of the way that they affect the game, they they kind of push you in one of three directions. And at this point here, all you do is you begin your transition to one of the affinities, and you get a small bonus. So how do they define the game? Not that much. They change a couple small things, and that's it. Just like the spy agency. How does this change the game? Not that much. Just gives you a couple bonuses here and there. Who do I want to steal from? A, B, and C. Boom, boom, boom. Stay there. That's it. How do aliens change the game and keep it interesting? They don't. They just stay there. Starting to see a pattern here. How do satellites stay interesting? They don't. They just kind of stay there in space. Repeat for the virtue tree. How does it make it interesting? Not really. The only kind of interesting part of the virtue tree is the beginning, and it's like, do I want prosperity or industry? That's really the only interesting part, in my opinion. Quests. Yeah, so there's a lot of quests here and there, and they're okay, and I know that they're very limited in like what they can do, but at the moment quests are just not really redefining the game. They're not keeping it interesting. A lot of them are, the super boring kind of like decisions you have to make. A few of them are the affinity quests, and those are a little bit better, but they're all about just like, when do I want my next affinity point? And that's all they are. They don't draw you in. They don't interest you. There's a big text box. At least they could do is have you listen to what the guy is, have it read to you as you're playing the game, and that way you could have the lore delivered to you bit by bit, and you could kind of appreciate things more. Maybe you could even turn that off, you know. But at least you would have an appreciation for the lore that's kind of hidden in this game. Which, to be honest with you, I have 160 hours in this game. I have not been reading lore because I'm not passionate about the game to even go into depth about reading what's going on. So satellites. Okay, so here you just eventually, more. This is more like mid-game kind of, but you start to get more satellites, and guess what you do? Put them in the sky, and you leave them there. There are very few satellites that are really actually interesting, in my opinion. So they're just kind of static things that just kind of stay there, and they were advertised as this new exciting thing, and then you realize it's just a map on top of another map, and it's resources, and then guess what? Another map with more resources. So it's just it's okay, but it's really not keeping the game interesting in my opinion. Planes. So you get planes fairly early on, but they're very weak for a while, which is fine. And then there are no bombers and there's no anti-air, so you don't even have that kind of gameplay, that kind of interesting situation going on there. All you have is tac jets. Who has more tac jets? Tac jet fight, everybody. I think that's terrible. All the units can shoot back at him, which that's okay, but it's a dumbing down of the system. Why are we dumbing these things down? We've understood these concepts. We don't need to have only fighter jets. Give us bombers back. Give us anti-air back. Please, for the love of God, give us those back, because those at least kept air fights interesting. Okay, um, helicopters, I don't know. They could be interesting. I don't really care for them that much. Um, I know, people probably want it back and they probably want it to work, and I agree. It would be interesting to some degree, but it's not like, oh my god, it's a necessity. But please bring back, the anti-air and bombers, because these don't make anything interesting. These just make it a game of whoever has the most planes that can snipe one unit and then heal up. That's all this does. And it also makes your cities get destroyed by bombers later, by tac jets later on as they get upgraded. Then what do we have? Well, we basically have um, an upgraded affinity. So your affinity is kicking in, and what do? You get better units and access to more buildings that do what? Give you more points. That's all it does. It's more point gathering. There's not enough defining of who you are within your affinity. I don't believe there are very many interesting affinity quests that would give you an interesting unit, or give you an interesting tile upgrade that you would only have one of and have to put in a very specific spot. They could have done so much with this, but they just did not. So this does not redefine the game. This does not let you do anything interesting with it, and that's really unfortunate. And on top of all these, I completely forgot to mention wonders. Wow, I did completely forget to mention wonders. So I'm going to mention it now because I don't have, the whole thing. Actually, I'll mention that later. And what do we have late game? More affinities. You have a couple of the spy action. You have that one spy action per affinity that's very similar. Um, and it's just basically like screw over one city or the vicinity of it, and that's basically what it is, and that's that's all it is. So it's not very interesting. It's just one additional thing, and then you have the victory conditions, which two of them are the same. So supremacy and purity are basically build a gate, defend it. Except one of them you have to. You basically the point in which they're the same is that you both have to defend. Just defend, defend, defend. Okay, that is not interesting. Okay. Then we have transcendence, which is again defend the mind flower. What is the science victory? Oh, defend the beacon. See where I'm going with this? It's not very interesting. Alright, so how do we fix aliens? Well, there's a lot of issues with aliens. The first issue with aliens is that they made them passive at the beginning. So you start out and they're already not interesting. they're already just walking around. The only aliens that might attack you are water aliens for some reason, who for some reason are much more aggressive, but don't reflect it. Um, so they'll attack like way more often than regular aliens, but they're still on green. So I don't really know what's up with that. Um, but either way, they are not aggressive enough, and they are just kind of there waiting for you to overtake them and kick their ass. Or, so that's not interesting. Um, I would recommend you have a new strand of aliens kind of pop up as the turns go by. Kind of keep you interested. Have the planet kind of adapt. The planet is a live thing, right? That's the idea. So why don't we just have new strands of aliens pop up as time goes by? Have them be something that kind of redefines itself as time goes by, so that way, you're at least challenged. I know they want to be different than Civ 5, and that's okay. The aliens are different. They've got their own units. They've got their own like global aggro range or whatever you want to global aggro aggression. So that's different enough. It's being different on the fact that the aliens fall off late game is not a good way to be different because it's such an inferior system. So you have to be different in a way that doesn't hurt your strengths. And the issue here is that the aliens fall off really hard and they become useless later. So that's something that like once you get tier 3 units, aliens are just screwed. So that's just truly unfortunate, and that does not keep for a very interesting game. So I recommend new strands of stronger aliens come in. These are just arbitrary, but you see what I mean. The planet's reacting to you. The planet's unsure of what's coming in, and it's starting to generate new strands of aliens to fight against this foreign force that's landed on the planet. All right, next is give us a clear alien aggression bar. I hate the colors that they've given us. Green. It's a blue, green, orange, red. Okay, what? Give us a value or give us more specific colors. Okay, or give us both, which would be even better. But let us know what level of aggression we have on these aliens, so we can kind of predict how they're going to react to things. Like how close are we to making them very angry? We want to know this kind of stuff. It doesn't matter if it's not realistic. Okay, it matters that we are able to kind of prepare our strategy to some degree. And having them randomly go from green to orange is not normal. When are they going to go orange? I have no idea. They'll just suddenly turn orange. They may be like a dark green, bright green. I forget. But either way, having them go from green to orange is a huge difference in how they act, and that's not helping us prepare for how they're going to react. So we need to be more informed, and there needs to be more interactions in terms of how friendly they can be to you. So here's my kind of example. All right. So in the original we have blue, from what I remember, blue, green, orange, and red. Okay. So in my version you have purple, which means like you've been nice to them for a long time. Maybe you're a harmony player and only you can reach this, but you've been good with them for such a long time. They will attack or be more aggressive towards nations that are aggressive to you. Okay, so they've seen you. They know that you haven't really attacked them, and that you've been only good to them. So they will start to attack your opponents if they attack you. And I think that would be very interesting. It would give them some use, at least as like a kind of a force that can aid you. And I think that would be interesting. Blue, which is the one where they basically just don't attack you at all ever. Green, which they may attack you but probably won't. White, which would just be like pure neutral. You don't really know. They might attack you, they might not. It's really 50-50. They're not really sure about you. Then we have yellow, where they're starting to say, okay, well, they don't really like you. Orange, they're highly aggressive. Red, which they'll attack you no matter what. And black, this is all out. Aliens will gather together and have concentrated assaults on you because you've aggroed them so much. And another thing about this, and I think they need to be more sensitive to attack. They need to be easier to anger, a little bit easier to anger, especially in terms of killing it off individual aliens. They need to be more aggressive. They need to be more responsive. It's too easy to clear out a few and do nothing, and clear out a few and do nothing. They need to to really be on top of you. They need to be reminding you that you're on their planet. This is their turf, and if you're going to start messing with them, you're going to regret it. And I think this needs to happen. Another thing I'd say is have random alien events occurring on the planet to keep people on their toes. So, you know, maybe you can have like a massive nest pop up somewhere where there's no nation. Maybe you could have maybe they had the recent aggression. Maybe everybody's been attacking them a lot, and now they decide like, okay, well, we're just going to be extra aggressive to everyone. So you could kind of either you could get a splash telling you like aliens are approaching, like as of lately the aliens have been more aggressive, blah blah blah. It turns out that perhaps the aggression that the sponsors have been doing to them has caused them to act this way, and maybe you could have like a worldwide event. Another thing that you could have is like maybe there's like some sort of miasma well or some sort of xenomass well, or not xenomass, something that attracts them all to one location. It pops up and it attracts them all to one location. That could kind of throw off people's plans, and maybe you could clear that with a worker quickly if like it's within your territory, or if it's far away you could just ignore it. But it's something that would kind of mix up the terrain, and it would kind of keep things fresh. So this is just a few recommendations of how to fix the aliens and just my ideas. But make them more interactive, make the player aware of them, make the player feel like this is not their planet and they should tread carefully. All right, so another way about solving the issue of more mid-late game is honestly sponsors, or not sponsors, colonies, or whatever you want to call them. These colonies, they don't really do anything. They just kind of stay there. They don't do much. Or stations, sorry, stations. There you go. Or let's call it stations. There you go, stations. And so as you can see here from the Civ 5 screen, there are things to do. Interaction. Look at that. That's interaction right here. Okay. Benefits to dealing with them. Oh, look, they're different than others. Hey, look, another way they're different from others. Oh, you can ally them. Oh, you can do things. You see, you can do things. There's things to consider here. Okay, I'm not saying that you need to copy pasta and put it over here, but you have to make this more interactive. Give them some different kind of interesting quest. The one where you need to kill them or be nice to them is not a great or interesting quest. It's just like it's a very binary thing. It's like A or B and that's it. Like it's not interesting. I don't think anybody's ever thought it was interesting. At this point, they're just like points that you can trade with and you kill if you don't like them. That's literally all you can do. Maybe make them a place that you can do stuff with. Maybe make it like so that if you really want to expand one of these, you could give them money to expand their territory and allow them to like provide them with things to help them get their own units or something like that. There's got to be something that they can do to keep these alive. And please, for the love of God, don't let them disappear randomly. It's unbelievable how they just randomly disappear, and that I don't even understand how that is still a thing. But yes, give them worthy resources to acquire. Give them something, and make them worth something. Make them worth something pondering over, and help make them immersive. Create their own story for each one. Step mining, put a splash, of like a mining place in the background, maybe like a guy standing in front, looking at you and discussing things with you. I mean, you don't have to have it like as like an animated screen, but you could just have a splash of like a guy at like Step Mining Corporation and have him there, and have all of these stations look different. Have the sprites look very different. And that will kind of help build the world. Like it'll help build things. Because right now I just see a station. I'm like, oh, it's that station. Oh, that blue, that's that station. Oh, this one, oh, that's that station. I don't even care about these stations. I don't even see on like a lore level like how each station is. They're just there and they're in your way. That's all they are. So they need to draw you into the world, and they need to give you an interesting choice on what to do. All right. Next, we're going to kind of discuss the health system. And one more thing I was going to add about this was this would help the mid and late game be interesting because you'd have decisions to make. All right, back to health and how I can mix it up. So I moved this up because, it turns out that I thought that this was related. So what's the problem and why is one system better than the other? Well, as you can see in Brave New World, unhappy empires, they start to mess with you. You get to 10, a meaningful cutoff point. Growth stops. You can't make settlers. You get rebellions and all this other stuff. And then finally you reach -20. They can change their like allegiance. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and you want to be careful. Now I know that this system is a bit harsh, but it's more interesting than this. This is terrible. This is, I mean, this, and I know that this is actually gone. I'm pretty sure this was like a beta screenshot. But this like -1, -2, -3, like how is that? How is that drawing you in the game? How is that interesting in any way? This is the most boring system. It's a spreadsheet system. It's a -1 this, -2 that, -3 this, -4 that. No, you need to have meaningful cutoffs. Okay, you don't need to have -1%, -2%, -3% this. Like this is boring. This is like what can this all this makes me do is like make me look at my like numbers and be like, huh, I wonder how much like 6% of my culture is. Can I afford that? It's not interactive. It's just boring. It's not interesting. So have things happen. So what I thought about is like have kind of use the idea of the golden age. Let's say you have a negative health issue for a long time. Well, maybe if you have it for long enough, a couple of your places get the plague and you can't use these tiles and you lose one population. Have something like that. Or if your population has been healthy for a long time, have a boon, have like a population growth across cities, kind of like, we love the King Day. Have the populations just increase. And have like a just have something like that. Get rewarded for getting good health, like have something to work towards. And have it be meaningful, and have these minuses not change at every single point, or at least too much. Have like meaningful cutoffs, like -4 will have this happen, or what I like is maybe 5%, or -5, -10, -50, -20. Have meaningful things that happen, and if you add up on health for long enough, have like a catastrophic event that occurs, or have something like that. I mean, it's not so catastrophic that you can't recover, but for your people it's catastrophic, but for the game it's like, okay, I need to deal with this now because I've had this occur. So you could have lots of different things, and here I've discussed like option quest to remove unhealthy population or face great population loss. So like let's say that you have the plague, right, and you're like, okay, well, they give you a quest. Oh my god, an interesting decision. I messed up. What do I do? And at this point you could say, well, I will quote unquote remove them, aka shoot them, just kind of like the Nerf staple in Alpha Centauri. I'm going to shoot these people, and well, it's not the same thing, but you see what I mean. It's a decision you have to make, right? It's a call you have to make. So you're like, okay, well, I'll remove this unhealthy population, which would basically set your health level back, and make other leaders dislike you because they think you're just repulsive for doing that to your people, shooting them. Or you could phase population loss for choosing not to do that. So that'd be a lose-lose situation, but that's what would happen from you deciding to to let your population, your health go down for a long time. So that was something that you could reach, a point maybe like once you get 150 on health like accumulated, something like that. So it could happen. So I think that would be interesting. And you could even see this happen on the map. You could see like some soldiers shooting some civilians or something like that. You could have something. Yeah, and a population boon could give you like a quest which lets you like further increase your population or gain respect from other leaders. You could have either help give food to the poor. So you're like, okay, or treat the poor, to some medical help, and then like other leaders would look fondly upon that, and it would give you a bonus. So there would be a lot of interesting things you can do, and it would help you define who you are. You would have to make moral choices and game choices, that would make it very interesting. All right, the tech tree versus the tech web and effect on the mid to late. So here we have kind of the issue where um, the tech tree, although it looks like it gives you more options, in my opinion, it gives you, or sorry, although it looks like the tech web gives you more options, the tech tree gives you more options. Now, why? Because tech tree forces you to kind of pick things up, right? This is, you want to go philosophy, you're going to have to pick here, you have to go to pottery, and you're going to have to choose whether to go calendar first or writing first, right? So you have to choose this or this. Then you have to go for the other one. Then you can finally go to philosophy, right? So you have to choose between this or this, right? You have to kind of consider these extra lines. These are considerations. Every line is a consideration, right? You want to get the wheel, you got to get this or this, right? You have to consider these things, and that that has some impact on how you play the game. The tech web, you don't have to consider anything. You want to go to surrogacy? Boom, you can go straight to surrogacy, straight there, or the usual path of habitation, engineering, computing, and then going wherever you want to go, or ecology, computing, and then wherever you want to go. You choose, right? So here, the issue here is that each circle, you don't have to really invest in it. Here you have to kind of invest in these other texts to some degree. You have to at least invest in a couple of them. But here, all you need to do is go straight to where you want to go. Boom, boom, boom. And the issue with that is that this is directly tied to affinities. Right, there's affinities are tied in, and I know that this is a slightly different on Beyond Earth Rising Tide. I don't personally believe it'll solve the problem, but that's another issue. So the issue here is that you can go wherever you want, and there's a clear best choice. And when there's a clear best choice, you lose the choice, because like, why would you go for anything else? People don't play this game to go I want to pick this, oh I want to pick this, oh I want to pick this, oh I want to pick this. Now they pay this to get better, to learn how to get better at the game, and to win eventually. So it's not that like the only thing we care about is winning, but we care about viable choices that will not gimp us throughout the game. So what you have to do is either find a way to take affinities out of the tech tree, give us a total amount of research done, and let that translate into affinity points. Okay, that would completely take it out of the tech tree, and still connect your tech to your affinities in terms of like more tech means more affinities, but it would not force you anywhere onto the tech web. The tech web would be something free that you can go to and explore. Okay, so you could either do that, or you could put a requirement. So you'd say like, okay, if I want to go to this circle, first I need to research like 2 of these texts. This is just an example. Then if I want to go out to this circle, I need to study at least 5 texts. I want to go out to this circle, I need to learn at least 10 texts. I want to go out to that circle, I need to learn at least 15 texts. So you see how like what this would do is, although it at first seems like it would limit you, what it would actually do is force everybody into picking a few texts. And where has this worked? That's right. The Civ 5 tech tree. You force people to grab a couple texts. And later on, once they've grabbed a couple, they can move on, right? So this is just, showing you again, you need to grab a couple texts. Like for example, here you want to go to civil service, you got to grab these 3, and you got to grab all of these, right? And then you can finally, and you got to grab these. Right, so you have to grab all of those, and then you can grab a couple of the other ones as you go. You can choose. There's like a very minimum amount that you have to get, and that creates choice because there's viable choices. There's viable text. You can go which way you want. You don't have to beeline stuff. Boom, I want to get this. Boom, I have to get this. Boom, I have to get this, or I'll fall behind. Boom, I have to get this, or I'll fall behind. And then that's the issue. You beeline to text that give you what you need, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. And I think that either this requirement system needs to be put in, or the affinities need to be separated. I don't think that this 2 to 3 affinity rising tide stuff is going to help, but that's a whole different story. Okay. All right. So before we go to the leaders and the great lack of ambition, actually, let's go to this. So A great lack of immersion and ambition. Now let's not even discuss the fact that wonders in Civ 5 have amazing splash art, and that wonders in BE are a blueprint. Okay, that's a complete lack of ambition, and that's my 2 cents about it. Like you should have filled those out. Draw and paint them whatever way you want. Spark our minds with something amazing. Okay, a blueprint does not impress me. Does not stimulate my imagination. Okay, it's you have to kind of give us a base to work with, and then let our imagination do the rest. And um, this is a great transition to why these leaders have the same issue. So here we have Askia, right? So as you can see, he's just been finished, burning something to the ground as you meet him. So like, wow, this guy's a badass. Wow, I should probably be careful. I remember meeting this character. The second I met him, I realized, oh shit, this guy is dangerous. I met this guy, Reginaldo, and I was like, oh, um, okay. I don't know what to think about this guy, and that makes him boring. I have nothing to work with. Okay, here you have your backdrop. He's holding a sword as he's speaking to you. The guy doesn't mess around. This guy, he's just kind of standing there in his little Civ 6, Civ 5 hex suit, whatever you want to call it. Okay, this is not interesting. I don't think to anyone, and I think that this background makes it even worse. And you'll find that this issue kind of is fairly common here. Look here again. Caesar. What do you see when you see Caesar? You see him sitting down. Why is he sitting down? He's sitting down because he's so much better than you that he's not going to stand up. He's an emperor, right? He doesn't need to do anything for you. He kind of he just talks to you. He almost shoos you away, with his hand when he's done talking to you. He's just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. He doesn't care about you, and you can see these big pillars show the strength of what he's built. The pride, the proud lion, the brazier is on at all times. The amazing, siege he's on, right? Look at this. She's there with her whatever this is, and her city in the background. This is not immersive. This is so. This is what I was trying to say earlier. Is this leads you back to the issue of Beyond Earth, which is they didn't give us enough to work with. For us to fill in the blanks in terms of what's happening, what's the story with our minds, and kind of create our own fantasy, you need to give us a base, right? There's no base here. There's nothing going on back here. So I can't build my own fantasy of what this person is or who she is from the ground up because I have nothing to start with. You need to give us something to start with. And this gives us a whole lot to start with. Here's another example. I chose both Russian leaders because I couldn't really find because they're both good at I think he's good with strategic. I know she's good with strategic resources. He's also good with his collectors or his whatever his you want to call them, the satellites. So either way, I just chose to compare these two. So here we have kind of a background, so you can see like, wow, she's proud. She's kind of she's in her palace. She's a leader of a great empire. She's got a lot of wealth, and she's a kind of person that emanates power. She's going to be the leader of a great empire, and so you can kind of see that in her passive. She's got the strategic resources bonus. She gets the most out of the land, and she uses those things to kind of make a great military and make a great empire. So this kind of translates, in my opinion, to some degree. And she's very charismatic, as you can see from what she's wearing. She seems very charismatic. And then you see this guy who appears to have gotten out of the Adidas store in a couple years in the future, and is just kind of standing there awkwardly like, hi, I have no personality. I honestly don't know what this guy's personality is. I have 160 hours of BE. I don't know who this guy is. He seems like a fairly reasonable person. That's all I'm getting out of this. I see her and I see, oh, expansionist, will be able to make lots of soldiers, is very strong. Like, and then I see him and I'm like, I just don't know who you are. I don't know what you're all about. Yet another example. Civ 5, you see him and you're like, okay, he seems like a very nice guy. He seems to be able to kind of, um, not that he's nice, but that he's able to pretend that he's nice. He deals well with people, and guess what? His bonus is city states, right? His ability to get more out of the city states. So he makes friends with city states, and you can see his friendly demeanor helps him achieve this. Probably Australia. Um, they're also I matched him with him because he's able to trade a lot within his cities or within other cities with his extra trade route bonus. Who is this? I don't know what or who or what this is. I hear people talking about the lore, and I'm like, I don't see this. I don't see this lore among this guy. This guy looks just like, I don't know. I'd have a beer with him. I don't know what to think about this guy. I have no idea. Like, so nothing comes through here, and this background makes it worse. How do we solve this? So you need to start. They need to start putting people in environments in which kind of show who they are. So you think about Sama Jamar Barret. He's a guy who's helping grow things. So you could put him in an environment like you could put him in a vivarium, you could put him in terrarium, somewhere like that, where he's growing his own things. You got to put him in an environment that shows who he is, and have him say very original lines. Okay, we don't need to have the same lines. Your indiscretion is no surprise, or some crap like that. Okay, give him his own very specific lines that kind of show who he is, how he expresses things, and yeah, and these locations could change as you become more of an affinity type nation. Like you could suddenly this could disappear, and then everybody could have their like a kind of affinity based, um, I guess, um, affinity based background, right? And have one guy in like an area that looks like very purity like, or have somebody in like a robotics kind of you know throne or something. Have them be in their own environment. And one of my favorite that I've thought of is, this is more relating to Rising Tide, but have somebody sitting there with a robot, like doing their bidding, like, and robots running around in the background, and have them just petting their own little pet robot, and just show the kind of servitude through that. And you need to put them in an environment that shows who they are at the beginning and as affinities progress. So you could have one for each at the beginning, one environment for each leader at the beginning, and later you could have one for each affinity, and later each hybrid, whatever. One environment of each. You see what I'm saying here? Develop it. Give us some background. See them change. See these people change. Here's another one. So Elodie, she's very cultural. So you could put her in a place with, paintings and lots of books, or, have her. I was trying to look for a picture of an office, but like have kind of like, like her own office with, many books, maybe a couple things from maybe like a small like Eiffel Tower or something, like a painting of the Eiffel Tower in the background. Just have things to kind of help draw who she is, and have her it's maybe sitting down, just like talking to you with like a book open, or anything, or maybe have her looking at a painting, and just like have her looking back at you as she's talking to you. She's thinking about the painting, and she's just kind of relaxed. She's doing her own thing, and have her in this manner. And this would help kind of build who she is. Next, we have Reginaldo. So Reginaldo is obviously known for his war tactics, his superior kind of ability, and you can even see it on his shirt, man. But anyways, put him in a situation that shows what he does, what he's good at. What is he good at? He's good at war, right? He's even getting new things with the expansion. So put him in a war room, or put him in front of one of those. Put him in front of one of these big screens. Put him anywhere that would make you think of a guy who's he's ready to just go to war if that's what it takes to solve the situation, which he starts to think is the solution for everything. So put him in a situation like this. Draw the picture for us, and we'll fill in the rest. But you have to draw the beginning of the picture. You cannot put the map as a background. There's just unbelievably that's just I just I don't know what to say about that. That's just not right. Like you can't expect us to draw the whole picture. You can't expect us to be like, okay, let me just read through 500 pages of Civilopedia and just go from there. We want to play the game. We're here to play the game. I don't mind reading some stuff later, but if you want us to draw the picture for us from ourselves, give us context, give us things that inspire us. Look at how amazing this drawing is. I mean, I even just seeing this already helps me understand who he is. All right. Next we have uninspired maps. So I'm kind of going over what we talked about earlier, but Civ 5 has, natural wonders, bland color scheme, or like a basic color scheme. Basic color scheme. Sorry, I this is not supposed to be here. I messed it up. But it has a color scheme that, although is fades into the background, it's realistic of what you would see on Earth. Okay, map kind of fades into the background. It's realistic, right? It doesn't take over everything, and that's the way they chose to do it. So it looks almost like a painting. If you look at the trees up close, they look like they've been painted on there. It's really interesting, and the colors are well balanced. Yeah, ignore this. This is a mistake. I forgot to move it back up. But yeah, well balanced colors. So it works. It's civilization. It's history. You want to just kind of get a realistic view of what's going on, right? Now, Civ B is a sci-fi game, which wants you want to inspire wonder, science fiction. You want to say, wow, look at this, grand thing, or wow, look how weird this is. This is so different. Look at this tree. It's so different. And the problem is they kind of went for the same idea, but they oversaturated the maps with the same color. So it makes the game less immersive because you just get these environments that stay out of the way. But it's a sci-fi game. The environments need to stand out. They just tell you, hey, you're on a different planet. I just don't get that out of the I just don't get that out of BE. And I've tried zooming in and kind of looking and getting the immersion out of it, but you zoom in and you're like, oh, these are just made to fade into the background, to not be in the way. And I agree that you don't want them in the way of your units. I mean, that's obvious, but you want them to stand out in some way, shape, or form to kind of make you feel like, yeah, this is definitely not Earth. You don't want them to feel like, oh, they just half-assed it, and that's kind of what it feels like when you see it. They went to the wrong approach, and again, this is like a lack of ambition. They were afraid, they were afraid to try something different. They were afraid to be like, what, let's go full out. Let's make this full sci-fi, terrain. And part of this is because, in my opinion, they should have used a different engine, but that's a whole different topic, and that leads to a lot of different things. But they should have done a more interesting terrain. Okay, that's the point, because the terrain is very boring. Okay, so here we have the Civ 5. So you can see like very distinct kind of colors. You see these forests. They look like they're almost painted on. It just looks realistic. It kind of, and there's a healthy mix of colors. It's a lot of greenery, which kind of inspires kind of like, okay, well, this is like, okay, this is fertile land, this is good land up to here, and there's a kind of a mix there. Sometimes you get some desert, sometimes you get some mountains, so you get to see different colors. You see brown, green, some blue, you get to see different things, right? Now this is low res. I'm sorry about the potato quality, but look at this: blue, 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 blue. A couple splotches of whatever this weird brown red, not even that red color, like, and then blue sand. What? So it's just too blue. It's oversaturated with blue. More blue here. I can't look at this screen for long. It hurts. And then you get all these weird things that obviously they're low res now, so you can't see them well, but they don't stand out in any way. They're not interesting. There's nothing interesting. There's nothing alien about this. And then you go here and you're like, wow, this is an alien thing. I wonder if I can step into this crater. No, you can't. This is just a mountain, and instead it's a crater. That was the lamest thing. I remember trying to get in here and think like, well, this can be an interesting thing. Maybe it'll give me defensive bonus, or maybe it'll have like some sort of anything related to it, anything interesting. Maybe it'll give me some, maybe like a bearing or crater, give me some science. I don't know. I thought this was interesting, and then they just made it a mountain. Oh, you can't walk through here. Cool story. That's it. Nothing to see here. So I mean, what is this? This is just embarrassing. So yeah, just look at this. This is hard to look at. Just keep looking at this. Your eyes are just gonna get tired of blue sand and blue ocean and blue miasma. Oh, and blue UI. Okay. Yeah, so there's no interesting hexes. Just a lot of just the same crap. And look at the arid biomes, just a lot of yellow. Sorry, I couldn't get any better screenshots than this. I looked for a while and just got tired of looking. But yeah, you see just the yellow, 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 yellow. Not too many changes. And then we have these terrible kind of crevices that are they're just annoying, to be honest. They just make it one UPT more of an issue. I'm not a big fan of these. I mean, you could have them here and there and have them be like a wide, just gaping kind of cavern or something. Not cavern, but like a wide crevice, and that would be kind of interesting. It'd be kind of sci-fi-ish. But having a lot of these and having them all over the place, they end up just being annoying. And they don't really draw me in because the size of them is kind of pathetic. So if you're gonna have some sort of natural, if you can make maybe natural wonder out of it, have like one per map that's like a huge crevice, and that would be interesting. I'd be down with that. But I'm not down with these just being here and there, and all they ever do is just annoy you and be in the way. I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you guys. Then we have the lush biome, which is just endless weird green blue color scheme. You need to change up the colors, you guys. These colors are they're the same thing every time, and I know you're trying to set a theme for it, and that's fine, but you need to have some sort of originality and some sort of change in the color patterns. You can't just have these same colors all over the map everywhere. It gets tiring. We play this game for 500 turns. I mean, not 500, 200 or 300 turns. So we don't want to see this or only this for that many turns, okay? These things need to be switched up for sure. So have a couple things here and there to kind of break it up and kind of give your eyes some rest from seeing the same color all the time. Okay, the immersion from quests. So here you have the other issue of quests just being the most boring thing. Alright? So bland background colors. Look at these. Same crappy colors as before. I'm really not a big fan of this. I'd much rather have some sort of space station white color, I'd much rather have that, to be honest with you guys. Be a lot more interesting. This just fades into the background and is boring. Where you have a chance to be interesting with your UI. Instead, you just choose to be boring, and this is again a lack of ambition, in my opinion. This is just the whole like, oh my god, we don't want to be in the way, but you're not in the way. You're just boring me with this color. And what is this? What does this mean? Does this mean anything to anyone? Because I don't. Is a city just leveling up? This is embarrassing. Okay? You want us to read this? Give us art, and I will read. Do you know how little kids learn how to read? You give them art, and then they read. This is basic reinforcement. You give us a tidbit, a small scene, something we can look at, or even a big scene, oh my gosh, a splash art that shows this kind of tangled web, and then have one splash art for each decision. Okay? This would make it interesting. This would help us draw the picture. This would help us connect the dots. You make a dot A and dot B, we connect to the middle, right? We connect things, we draw the story within our head, but you need to put the dots first. Dots are in the form of splash art. Give us something to look at. Give us something to spark our imagination, and the city leveling up is not one of them. Okay, I'm getting too upset about this. I don't want to be one of those YouTubers that does that, so I'll try to stop. But anyways, the bonus is uninspiring with a lot of these, and I'm not completely against this. I don't know what the right solution is, to be honest with you. But we can have this be the solution for every single quest. We can have it for some, not every single quest. That's boring. When I see these, I remember which one I want to pick. Click, done. That's it. That's what I do because it's just not interesting. So yeah, like there's just too many of these, and these need to be changed. And then these one-time bonuses are also boring. I see they were doing the same thing with artifacts, and I just face palmed in Rising Tide. But this is not interesting. This is not immersive. Okay. I'm not saying that I have the answer to this, but you can't do this for everything. You can do it for some things. You definitely can. And I would even recommend not putting all three things to here. Put one thing. Okay, because one thing says, hey, do you want this bonus? Yes, I do. Well, why don't you do this quest? Instead, this is three things. This is three things you have to consider. This is a bonus to everything, which means it's a bonus to nothing. Make it one clear bonus that we're going for. Maybe two on occasion, but basically one. Make it meaningful in that way. Okay? Don't mix it up. This is terrible. Alright, so yeah, this is what I just discussed. I forgot I had this slide next. But yeah. Add art to the quest. Brings a sense of achievement and immersion. Have like a unique unit or unique tile improvement maybe. Because think about it, you have an empire, you can have literally 30, 40, 50 tiles. A couple unique tile improvements here and there would be fine. Like 2 or 3 or 4, I think that would be fine. Everybody can have that much space in their empire. And you can even have a choice of what you want. And please, for the love of God, just change the base UI. The color is it's horrid. I honestly can't stand it. It's boring, and it adds more blue in a game that has too much blue already, in my opinion. All right, move on. Affinity tile improvements. Okay, so you have farms that there's nothing space related that's with these farms. They're just kind of there. This looks like a farm we could have almost today if you just put on like NASA stuff onto it, NASA covers onto it. It's extremely boring. And then you have these which remain the same. So look, the city's changed. Look, oh wow, our city's changed. Oh, this has changed. Oh, this has changed. I mean, not the trade boat, unfortunately, which could change too, but all these things change, all these things develop. What do we have? It's the year 2600. We still have the same farms. What is this? This is terrible. This needs to be changed. Give us purity looking farms. Give us higher tech farms. When vertical farming gets discovered, have them look like they've been doing some sort of changes here. I'm not saying like make a massive vertical farm and take over the entire land. I'm not saying that, but elevate them a little bit. Do something. Change it up. For the love of God, this is so bland, and it doesn't change. At least in Civ, things change up a little bit in Civ 5, but in here they don't at all. And apart from your cities, nothing else changes. It's extremely boring. And even this thing just remains the same. And the workers, we still have these workers hundreds of years later. We're like changing people into robots, and we're still using these. Is this a joke? Like this is embarrassing. This can't be right. This needs to be changed. Okay, so I mean that's about all I have to say about that. So what do we have left looking forward, and in the remaining videos, if you still remain interested after this? We have diplomacy issue, which is essentially there's very little. Now I know that Rising Tide addresses this perhaps, but I'm not going to get into that until later when I discuss Rising Tide. Uninspiring victory conditions. I think that's a massive problem. I thought they were cool until I played them and I realized they were all the same thing. Short games that encourage turtling, so beelining, which causes people to just rush to one thing, get to it, and just win the game. And this also encourages turtling because all you really want to do is get your tech up, try to get to the Affinity victory and win, because guess what? Everybody can get to it so early you can't stop anyone. Map with so many different various resources like cold and all this other stuff, but all of them are so meaningless. There are no interesting resources to fight over. There's nothing that's gonna like massively help your health or something like that. It's gonna give you +3 health or something. You know, it's just same crap everywhere. It's like, oh, this is strategic resource that I don't really have to get to do well. Oh, there's this, geothermal. That's like the only one that I think is like kind of nice, kind of worth fighting over to some degree, and even not that much. So there's yeah. So there's that. The endless plus and minuses, somewhat lackluster spy system, and the issues with unit diversity and the like. So I know that I've discussed some of these, and I'll go over them again and try not to reiterate too much. But this is what we have left in terms of things that haven't been addressed yet. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I tried to stay on topic, and I think I forgot like 1 or 2 points I wanted to make, but I hope this is you know what you were hoping to hear, and what you were hoping to kind of. I hope this helped you understand kind of what the issues are with Rising Tide, from my opinion and from some other people's opinions who are really passionate about the game, who've played it enough to know the issues with it, and I want to be as serious as possible with this, and I don't want to let anything go, because why should I? I'm not mad at the developers for making a game that's not good. I want them to fix it, though. I want them to fix it, and I want them to make it good. And I want to say at the end, when we're done with whatever 2 expansions or however many they need to fix this game, I want to be able to say to my friends, this game is awesome. It started from being terrible, not terrible, from being bad and boring to being amazing. It took some time, but we made it, and I don't want them to give up on this game. So I want these things to be clear. I want them to see this video, and I want them to understand what a fan wants from this game. And I hope this helps people understand how to think about these issues, and like why there are issues with this game. So I've really given this game a lot of thought, and the issues behind it a lot of thought. Like, why does this happen? Why does this happen? So yeah, that's about it, guys. I'll be working on the 3rd video, but I don't know when yet. I don't think any of the videos will be as long as this one, because honestly, that covered a lot of stuff, at least on some degree. Have a good day, guys. This is Irish, signing out.